Welcome to Blended Educational Theory in the Classroom, a new schooling approach. So this presentation is going to cover some different theories and elements that are important to education and learning and motivation. Each one is incredibly unique and brings a lot of depth and understanding of learning and motivation. And we can use them and combine them to provide a solid foundation to structure any curriculum on. The theories that will be presented all are helpful for the development of enrichment and engagement in curriculum while addressing various learning needs and approaches. So the first theory we'll discuss is social theory. This emphasizes that motives in learning are often influenced by a student's environment, behaviors observed, and personal cognitive factors. So because learning is often a mimicking process, situation tasks may provide learning experiences that can be shared where students learn from one another. They then use what they observe to select self-driven motives to assess, seek out information, and problem solve in their own way. So what this means is through observing peers and educators and selecting what applies to themselves, we end up with a really important effect because the motivation was initially delivered extrinsically. But once the learner chooses what motivations are socially acceptable or valuable, that is now an intrinsic motivation, which really fosters that meaningful and personalized experience that they can seek out and share within the social setting. So a lot of online traditional settings are challenged. So they try to blend in these sorts of ways different online models that kind of blend face-to-face to improve that social learning performance. So another key theory discussed by a lot of educators and researchers is self-direction. And this states that education is often shaped by those intrinsic factors we discussed earlier. Characteristics like self-motivation, self-monitoring, and self-management are important here. And self-direction has shown through previous research to result in meaningful and successful experiences. Another interesting a positive effect that has been demonstrated in previous research is self-directed tasks in curriculum has shown improvement in episodic memory and memory retention. Something else to note is motivated self-directed learning is often observed in distance education settings. These and graduate schools, these types of students often already are self-learners and motivated intrinsically, which is often why they attend graduate school or even college. And distance education and online education really requires those characteristics such as self-motivation and monitoring and management to continue and keep on task. Some researchers like Menninger argue that learning models should incorporate self-evaluation and self-autonomy as these strategies can help the learner participate in ensuring their own learning progress, and hopefully that can improve their learning outcome as well. So democratic learning is another theory and approach that can be applied in the classroom. It promotes pro-social values such as equality, human dignity, problem solving, social responsibility, collaboration. And here you would use community and democratic-led directives to shape your curriculum. The idea is that when you model this type of pro-social behavior in the classroom, students will choose to carry it outside of the classroom, which leads to improvement in the community. These behaviors are best taught through modeling, And because of that, it's crucial that the teachers have a deep understanding of these democratic values and collaborate with each other how to apply that and shape a school-wide standard, so that children can and students and learners can mimic and apply it everywhere on the school grounds. And an interesting way that has been suggested to teach it is to allow the students to teach a lesson or a portion of a lesson of a class. And this helps them gain a deeper understanding of the teacher's job and what they go through to prepare and teach a class, as well as the difficulties maintaining student engagement. And the idea is then students become more involved in better behavior and better learning outcomes. So the next approach I want to discuss is personalized learning. This approach addresses a combination of factors that affect each individual. And the idea is to adapt behavior, curriculum pace, language, etc., to match the learner. And this is based off research that looks at an individual's motivation and tries to align the learning task with those motivations, whether they be extrinsic or intrinsic, to make the experience more meaningful. And experiences that require students' learning outcomes to reflect well-being and academic efficacy and academic achievement really should integrate these flexible grouping and lesson plannings that can approach each child. This is actually difficult, even though this is really looked at through personal psychology right now and is a very widely researched topic. It is difficult to implement, especially in a classroom with many students and learners and limited instructors and teachers. So, and especially these types of approaches want to emphasize the importance on setting aside that time to interact personally with the child during some sort of portion of the curriculum. The general curriculum can remain the same, but the engagement and the interaction received is aligned with their own personality needs. So many learning outcomes have shown increase in social and personal academic support are definitely increased by those. And some interesting research that's being done is the use of robots in the classroom. The idea is to program these types of robots with the related curriculum and task abilities, as well as personalized conditions that engage eye contact or specific movements. For example, a student could high five the robot and maintain physical interaction and responsiveness to the learner, as well as to adapt speed and times on visual elements of the computer interaction. If a student needs a quicker pace learning a lesson, the robot can model and engage with the student in that way. If it needs to slow down, it can adjust accordingly as well. Also, the robots could use the individual's name and continuously adjust the learning needs for each learner after continued observation. So a lot of research has suggested that participants do show an improvement in learning in this type of interaction with these robots. So this could be a really helpful and efficient way to provide added support within the classroom. That would be quite difficult without that type of technology. The last approach or really concept I want to discuss that should always be applied in the classroom is teacher and learner well-being. Learning outcomes have been affected by stress, emotional exhaustion, and teacher burnout. Often, conflict or poor behavior in the classroom may result in stress. Poor learning outcomes could also stress the teacher out. Also, whatever factors in their own lives. And the students actually can feed off of this, which really brings their learning outcomes down. The resolution for this conflict would be pro-social modeling, and really, really encouraging the rapport and quality of relationships, as well as incorporating well-being into the curriculum. This sounds like a difficult task. However, there are some researchers that have looked into the types of framework that could be used for this. One suggested is called Prosper, and researchers Noble and McGrath suggest that this can be applied to building curriculum in the classroom to ensure success and well-being. And they like to cover dimensions to include positivity, relationships, outcomes, strengths, purpose, resilience, and engagement. Purpose, engagement, and resilience, Prosper. And so they would look, for instance, for positivity. They want to encourage positive expression and emotions. So healthy curriculum would be engagement, maybe learning about culture and dance. And this also moves us into relationships and improving social abilities and healthy culture. Outcomes are encouraged and enhanced through goal-oriented optimal learning experiences. And applying strengths that certain and identifying strengths that teachers or students have to emphasize those and really utilize those strengths in the classroom. Developing a sense of meaning and values that can really create purpose. And engagement can be enhanced through utilizing evidence-based approaches that include activities or curriculum that really enhance creative thinking. And lastly, resilience is fostered through teaching coping skills, decision making, and self-management. So really, the takeaway from all of this is to bring positive changes in educational settings. Teachers that are flexible and student-driven learning approaches really can help in the classroom, including teacher well-being efforts and ensuring teacher needs are met, and using various methods and techniques that have been researched and demonstrated in the past to enhance curriculum and appeal to many learning styles. The student voice is really necessary to ensure well-being. Students do desire healthy relationships, and they do have a lot to offer as far as teaching methods and learning environments. And the same goes for our teachers as well. Their voice really should be heard, and this democratic type of behavior in the classroom can really make a safe place. Blending these learning approaches can apply use of technology or online programs and traditional class settings. You can really address this in any type of setting. Most schools and universities do make adaptations to include a lot of these approaches, and a lot of curriculum is designed to try to approach and accommodate as many learning styles as possible. And I do believe that classrooms do provide a lot of face-to-face instruction, hands-on activities, and social interaction. However, maybe the flexibility and technological abilities are not as strong as what an online education could offer. I think everyone can agree there's probably not one way to address curriculum and learning approaches in the classroom, whether it is traditional or distance, but mixing these approaches is welcome and really can help meet the needs of the school within the community. So a lot of factors have to be taken into consideration here, and there should be enough autonomy afforded to the teachers and students to narrow the scope of approaches to the specific classroom by openly discussing their needs and any obstacles that may be faced by individuals within the classroom. The bottom line I want to conclude with is that schools and places of learning are really sacred institutions that do provide a service to the community in many ways beyond just simply achieving academic or training goals. I want to say that schools do provide a model for interaction and meaningful experiences and exchanges in the community. We learn inside the classroom and we carry it outside. So they do create a safe place for individuals to explore interests and talents while developing those skills that they can eventually apply to their environment. And in schools, you have personal and social growth can be fostered, and schools can model structure and utility and integrate democratic behaviors. And the more emphasis that we place on ensuring these learning environments are as enriching and as nurturing as possible, the better chances that learning outcomes will be successful, meaningful, and manageable.